At an early age, I started breakdancing and kind of doing freestyle. And we started getting in just more of the rap side of hip hop and trying to feel accepted by our friends that did drugs and maybe smoked a little bit of marijuana and were in gangs, you know, trying to feel accepted.
Anthony Gonzales and his twin brother Andrew grew up going to church, but were drawn into the world of drugs, gangs, and hip hop. When the boys were 16, their mother was diagnosed with lupus. Within months, she died.
Watching your mom slip away in front of you is one of the hardest things that you can go through as a child.
7 months after his mom died, Anthony got a phone call.
It was Easter weekend, and my twin brother had called me up and was like, "Hey man, I want to come to Alvin to come kick it with you guys. We don't have school tomorrow."
His brother never made the trip.
That night he went out to 3 different keg parties, and he took my cousin's car without his permission, really. And they took off to Texas City and they were drinking and driving and stuff. When he made a right turn, they fishtailed, slammed into the rail, and flipped over the rail. By the time the ambulance got there, he was pronounced dead on arrival.
Anthony's grief over his brother's death quickly turned to anger towards God.
And I said, you know what, if this is what I get for trusting in God and praying, then I don't want it no more. Called up all the dudes I used to sell drugs with, gang members and stuff, and people that we knew. And I just jumped back in the game. I was selling crack cocaine, ecstasy pills, pounds of weed, and just white, what we call cocaine.
He also started doing gangsta rap. He produced 2 successful albums, and he lived the hard lifestyle.
If I'm gonna rap about it, I'm gonna say I'm gonna pack a gun and I'm gonna sell drugs and I'm gonna hurt people, then I'm gonna do it, because I don't wanna be fake.
He eventually became a full-fledged addict, staying awake for days on a constant high.
One night we had company over and we were just partying and drinking and doing drugs and whatnot. I got so coked up. I remember going into the restroom, shutting the door, locking it, and I would get into the bathtub and I would shut the curtain, and I'd be in there with my gun, locked and loaded, just tripping, feeling like somebody's out to kill me.
But Anthony's dad never gave up on him.
Every once in a while he'd call just to let me know he's okay. And when he would call, I would always tell him, I love him. I didn't try to lecture him or whatever he was going through. I just wanted to let him know I loved him and that I always prayed for him.
But one night, Anthony's destructive ways caught up with him.
So I started looking through my phone to call up some females and whatnot and trying to get into the Friday night thing. And I started experiencing some pain in my chest and bam, it hit me. I had a heart attack.
Anthony nearly died that night.
I was running from God for 4 years. And here I am in an ICU room bed, strapped down, and I ain't got no other place to look but up. And it's like God is saying, do I got your attention now?
I called my pastor. He came up there and he asked him the same thing, Anthony, if you go today, where will you go?
Life or death? Which one?
So Anthony made the choice. I'm tired of running from God.
When Anthony was released from the hospital, he moved in with his dad and began to study the Bible.
I put myself in boot camp, reading the scriptures, fasting, praying, seeking the Lord diligently with all my strength.
He went back to the studio to record a new album called The Transition.
It's straight up. It's a transition, which means to shift, to change. Because if it was on my actions, I'd be in hell. You know, and the only thing that drew me out was God's faithfulness.
Prodigal son, that was so familiar because it reminds me of that father. When the son said, Father, I have sinned against you in heaven, but to my son, as that father was, I couldn't help but just open my arms just as wide and say, you don't have to do anything. I just want you to come home, be with Jesus.
God has recreated me. You know, I'm a new creature in God's eyes. that all things of the past are washed away. Even though I was unfaithful to God, even though I turned my back on him, even though I did what I wanted to do and was so full of pride, you know, God still loved me.